Operators in Singapore have been urged to discuss openly with the public possible changes to the transport system. This is because people are anxious to know how the system will be affected when the MRT starts operating later this year. This point was made by the MP for Fengshan, Dr. Arthur Communications and Information, of an international seminar exhibition on transport relations was imminent in public transport.
Public education is very important to ensure that the public, especially the elderly and the less educated, know how to make use of these systems. The public should also be enlightened as to the reasons for fare and route changes. The transport operators should not be afraid to discuss freely the problems that they are facing. A good rapport, I must stress, is essential. A good public relations program will go a long way to fostering trust when changes in a system need to be made.
Some from 6 countries are taking part in the 3-day exhibition, which covers land, sea and air transport. Technological Institute and the Chartered Institute of Transport Singapore section.
Singapore has been urged to develop its potential as a transport research centre. The chairman of the Chartered Institute of Transport, Mr. Mike Gray, pointed out that as one of the world's leaders in transport, the Republic could provide consultancy services for overseas markets. Speaking at an international seminar on the subject, he recommended that tertiary courses in transport should be introduced. Mr. Gray later gave more suggestions.
There is various research carried out in Singapore in the NUS, NTI, by transport professionals, the industry as a whole, but there's little coordination between these various sectors, and there's a little time given to resource library or coordinating the function. So we feel that if all the bodies could get together, the transport research in Singapore could be increased. But also it may enable us to export our services in transport.
The Government Parliamentary Committee for Communications and Information today visited SPC. It was part of its familiarization tour to statutory boards under its charge.
The committee, led by its chairman, Dr. Arthur Beng, said it was satisfied with the station's achievements. It had managed to improve its programs despite a decrease in staff. To further improve the station, the committee had a number of suggestions.
Firstly, we made a suggestion that SBC should market its very successful Chinese drama series more aggressively in areas where there are Chinese, for example, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and in even America, Australia, and in France. This, I understand, is already being done. The other suggestion that we made was that maybe the SBC street scene, for example, the Chinatown scene, could be open to the public in much the same way that Hollywood opens up its studios, these Universal Studios. Here we understand the constraints that the SBC has, in that there is space constraint and there is time constraint, in that the work schedule must come first. But I'm glad that the management is open to the idea and that they will consider it if there is space available and when time comes that they are able to schedule their programs.
It was also suggested that the corporation have a link-up with other broadcasting stations in the region and the world. This would enable SBC to tap the technical expertise and talent of other stations to complement its own. Another issue discussed was the possible partial privatization of the station. Like the SMRT, SBC could be fully government-owned but managed like a company. This would give it more flexibility in making decisions and choices. But it was pointed out that privatization was not feasible at the moment.
Freight operators in the Pacific are in Singapore to discuss the fast expanding trade in the region. And moving people and goods to suit today's air and shipping needs is just one topic they will be discussing. A report now on the Pacific Freight Distribution Conference at Raffles City.
It's no accident the Chartered Institute of Transport chose Singapore for a conference site. Delegates from 17 countries all wanted the latest, most cost-efficient ways for moving people and products. Singapore, already the world's largest seaport, now wants to be #1 in tourism and conventions.
According to a survey conducted by Union des Forêts International, a world-recognized standard-bearer for exhibitions, Singapore accounted for 14 out of 22 trade shows held in Asia in 1987.
Tariff rates for Singapore's port and airport are among the lowest in the world because productivity gains are passed on regularly to users. This point was made by the Minister for Communications and Information, Dr. Yeoning Hong, at the opening of the Pacific Transport, Freight and Distribution Conference.
What is our fundamental philosophy in this particular industry? Put very simply, it is to provide the best possible service to our consumers, to our users, both domestic and international, at the lowest possible cost. The best possible service at the lowest possible cost. This means that we have to continuously invest, and invest massively, in the order of billions of dollars, in order to provide up-to-date, state-of-the-art technology in the fields that will service this particular industry.
Dr. Yeo later toured an exhibition held with the conference. Some 250 delegates from 20 countries are taking part in the 3-day conference held by the Chartered Institute of Transport. Dr. Yeo said, as a result of our policy, Singapore is now the 4th largest container port in the world. It's the world's busiest port in terms of gross tonnage of shipping, and Changi was rated the best airport last year at the Asian Freight Industry Awards and the 2nd best in the world.
Said this at the opening of an Asia-Pacific Freight Conference and exhibition this morning. He said the region is now enjoying a freight boom, with major air cargo centres such as Changi Airport and Tokyo's Narita Airport averaging 18% growth in the volume of air freight handled. With the growing demands of the industry in mind, Mr. Ho added that the Republic's liberal aviation policy and high-tech communication systems in sea transportation will be maintained. The theme for this year's conference is Freight, the vital link for the Asia-Pacific in the 1990s. About 50 companies from 7 major world ports are taking part in the 2-day event.